During the 1980s and 1990s, the revolutionary war-changing weapon was the precision-guided bomb. During the insurgency wars of the 2000s, the game-changing weapon was the improvised explosive device. And since 2022 with the war in Ukraine, the game-changing weapon is the drone, and specifically the first-person view drone, the FPV drone. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and we are learning what warfare in the next 20 years or 30 years of the 21st century is going to look like by seeing what's going on in Ukraine. And what's going on in Ukraine is horrible in a way that, as a student, amateur student anyway, of warfare, I can say maybe I haven't seen anything quite this horrible in the history of warfare. Steve, let's start with you. The first-person drone is an inexpensive, just a regular drone like most people have and fly around for fun. A small explosive is dropped on it. It's essentially a precision-guided hand grenade. Prior to watching, and I've seen more of these than I should, prior to watching these things in action in Ukraine, I thought that the worst place you could be in the history of warfare would be to be in the trenches in World War I. But I don't believe that anymore. Because in World War I, during an artillery barrage, you could get down below the berm of the earth, and then it was just a matter of luck whether you got hit or not. First-person drones are piloted remotely by an operator on the other side. They essentially have two coils of metal that are interlaced with each other. Sometimes they have two probes. And when these two things come in contact, they explode. And what they explode upon coming in contact with is a single human being. These are not area design weapons. These are not designed to kill tanks. These drones fly up and down the line, spot enemy soldiers. There's usually a spotter drone that's up in position watching this. And then the operator of the first-person drone, using virtual reality goggles, flies this thing directly into an individual enemy soldier, and that explosion either kills them or cripples them. The terror of this is that once you've been spotted by one of these drones, you're pretty much a dead man. Statistics from the battlefield are showing that if a soldier is caught in the open by a first-person video drone, first-person view drone, his chance of being killed by that weapon is 92%.
Yeah, I saw that this morning. I was blown away.
92%. I have seen a large number of these videos, and the last image to be transmitted back from the drone is the image of a terrified face of a man who is running for his life and trying to shoot back or swat it with his rifle or whatever. And that's the reality of the world that we're living in right now. What is another part of the reality of the world that we're living in right now is that the Pentagon doesn't seem to be taking these things very seriously. Nope. We've got our F-35s and our gold-plated sixth-generation fighters and all of these, multi-billion-dollar aircraft carriers, but these drones are made for probably hundreds of dollars, if not a few thousands of dollars, and they are absolutely changing infantry tactics. Anybody knows anything about warfare knows no matter how good you are in the air and how good you are at sea, wars are won by men on the ground with rifles, and these FPV drones are turning into the most effective anti-infantry weapons that we have ever seen on the face of the planet.
It may even be more incredible than you know. I saw an article, this is just a couple of weeks ago, it's in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, I can't remember which. And before I get to the number in this article, I wrote a column about this, and I did my research, as I like to do. Mr. History Buff here likes to learn new stuff. If you go back to the time when indirect fire artillery was invented, artillery fire was responsible, depending on the war, but these numbers are solid, between 60 and 70% of all battlefield casualties. That's dead and wounded combined. Artillery, in fact, in one of their books on military issues, Austin Bay and James Dunnigan, their chapter on artillery was called "The Killer." So that's been the role of artillery for more than 100 years now. 60 to 70% of your casualties are going to be caused by artillery. In the Ukraine war, as of last year, 80% of casualties in that war have been by drone, and the numbers going up because it started way lower in the first year of the war, and so that percentage is just increased over time, and it's if it's 80% over time, then it must be over 80% now. And the thing is, I believe I'm remembering this number correctly. The typical ratio of killed to wounded is usually something like 4-1, 5-1, depending on how good your first aid is, that your MASH units, that sort of thing is. And now, Bill, 92%. That's not 4-1 wounded to killed. That's 11-1 killed to wounded.
Yeah.
That's this changes everything. And I remember seeing a post. I've got a I don't know if you know how to curate lists on Twitter now X. I love curating lists. I've got one called War Reporting, and it's just people who I consider to be good sources on military matters and ongoing wars. And one of these guys, Trent Telenko, warned. This must have been in the first year of the Ukraine war, so 2022, when we were first really seeing that drones were changing things. He said the U.S. Air Force now has a problem in that they rule everything from 3,000 feet and up, but 3,000 feet and under, we've got no clue. The Air Force just
30
has
feet
no
and under
clue.
is where we are in many of these cases.
Exactly, and that's how rapidly these things change, because these things fly low. I mean, I saw a video just last week, Bill. Like you, I watched a lot of this stuff. This drone was chasing a guy through the woods.
Oh yeah, around trees they'll follow them, and sometimes they'll play with them like a cat. I've seen drone operators
Cat and
simply
mouse.
just circle a guy for a while just to have some fun.
Yeah, and occasionally you'll see a drone get taken out by, say, a shotgun blast, something like that, but not very often. Not very often at all. And things have changed radically. Ukraine just launched that brilliant strike on 5 different strategic Russian Air Force bases. They took out, we believe, half a dozen strategic bombers and 1, maybe 2 of Russia's 4 remaining AWACS-type planes. And right now, Russia doesn't have the ability to replace any of these.
Those are more like I would call it like a traditional drone strike, right? Like a
Yes.
a major drone strike. These are precision guided hand grenades. They're incredibly inexpensive, and you throw it over the lines. There's no cover to get under. Not only can you get down in the trench from these things, but you can't even go into a bunker or a dugout because they'll fly them right into the dugout and kill you that way.
Yeah, and both sides are now starting to put camouflage netting just for
because if
way,
they see
way
if
over
you're seen
all of their trenches.
if you're seen, you're dead.
Yeah, and if you're caught out in the open, that's where the 92% comes from. And the thing is, you can't fight from a trench. You can defend from a trench, but as they used to say 100 years ago in World War I, eventually you have to go over the top. That means over the top of the trench, and you got to cross that open space to get to the other guy.
Now the top comes over you.
Yeah. Let me finish with one last thing. There was I don't know if you ever watched Blackadder, the old BBC show with Rowan Atkinson, but the 4th season, each season was set in a different era. The 4th season was set in the trenches of World War I in northern France. And Baldric, the sort of idiot character, is seen scratching at a bullet. And Rowan Atkinson, Blackadder, asks Baldric what he's doing, and Baldric says, "I'm writing my name on it." "You're what?" He says, "Well, they say there's a bullet out there with your name on it, and I figure if I have it, then I won't get shot with it." And, we get some laughs out of that, but Bill, there's a drone with everybody's name on it, and you see it coming.
You see it coming, yeah, and there's not much you can do about it. Which brings me to the second thing, Scott. Infantry units typically carry 1 or 2 members that have special weapons. An infantry unit will have a number of guys who have anti-tank weapons, for example, or whatever the case may be. Companies like Anduril are now in the process of being able to produce wide area denial of drones. It just basically puts out a microwave pulse and just knocks them down. But as Steve was talking earlier, the reason artillery would kill so many people in earlier wars is you'd have all of your guys together in one place, and one good artillery barrage, you could take out an awful lot of guys. We're talking about individuals who are walking in a field with no other soldiers in sight. They're spotted by these high-altitude drones. These low-level FPV drones go down and kill these guys. And when I was talking a second ago about specialized unit tactics or specialized soldiers in a unit, many times you'll see these drones going after 7 or 8 soldiers in a moving truck or whatever the case. But despite what Steve just said, I'll tell you one thing I have never seen ever used by the people who've been killed by these first-person drones, and that is a shotgun. I've never, ever seen any one of them use a shotgun. And I'm not on the battlefield, but it seems to me that a shotgun would be extraordinarily effective. I've seen many guys trying to shoot AKs at this thing, which is like trying to hit a pigeon with an AK. But a shotgun, I think, would be a pretty good temporary solution to at least lower the odds on these kind of things.
It's funny. It's exactly what I was thinking when Steve was talking. It's like we need a wider spray to be able to take things like this out. Now, it's still, I'm sure there are 1,000 reasons why that's a bad idea. You can't carry 2 weapons into the field. It's awkward. It's really much harder than we think, even with a shotgun, to take one of these things out. Or, I'm sure they could tell me all the reasons why that wouldn't work. But that bullet with your name on it concept, people don't realize what you said before, like a large quantity of those massed army casualties were from artillery that was essentially not blind, but they were just being lobbed into areas and relying on giant patterns of concussion and shrapnel that would happen as a result of the explosion of this ordnance. Shooting with a rifle was a lucky thing if you hit somebody. Throwing a hand grenade, you're limited by your distance of your being able to throw that hand grenade. And in movies, it seems to work all the time. The sniper always gets his guy.
Oh, the hand grenade causes a huge explosion.
Yes, and it gets everybody is successful at doing those things. But in real life, the reason why they would say, people feel lucky that they were missed, well, the guy who's the shooter feels lucky if he hits somebody. This changes everything, though. The level of precision and tenacity of the bullet with your name on it is like nothing we've ever had to deal with. And so, as always, there will be a countermeasure, whether that's a shotgun or something else, or a net that you fling into the air above you or whatever. And this arms race at the tactical level, at the individual level, will advance the way the arms race has at the nuclear or Iron Dome level, where you develop these systems. It may not happen in time to save the lives of so many Ukrainian individuals or Russian kids that are forced out against their will, essentially, by a tyrannical dictator. But it's heartbreaking to think of these people who are just, fleeing for their lives and they can't get out. I mean, I don't know if the drones are doing this yet, Bill. You probably know. But man, there's capabilities to lock in on somebody, and the guy who's steering the drone doesn't even have to do anything. Once you're able to lock in on that signature of that individual's face or the heat signature or some other marker, these drones could essentially fly themselves, and your only hope was that they run out of power before you run out of power.
This example is probably the single greatest reason why I was such a strong and remain such a strong advocate for Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth understands that this is the fight that we're fighting now. This is not an issue of we need another aircraft carrier out there. This is what is killing people on the battlefield today. Yep. I would like to think that what Pete Hegseth is doing right now is he's taking a bunch of soldiers out into a training ground someplace, having people fly drones without explosives, trying to contact them and seeing how effective they are with shotguns against these kind of things. Because I think a shotgun make a real big difference. I will tell you one final thing, and this is the most tragic and the most horrific thing about all of this. And I've seen this more times than I should too. One of the reasons that the fatality rate is so high is because it is either Ukrainian or Russian soldiers who are being attacked by these drones. If these were American soldiers, the casualty rate would be much lower. Not because we're superhuman, but because of our doctrine. Most of the people who get hit by these drones are not killed by them instantly. They're crippled by them. They're incapacitated by them. And the Ukrainians do not have the means, and the Russians do not have the inclination to have an army that says, one of my men are down, I want him in a field hospital in 15 minutes. Yeah. And so again and again and again and again and again and again and again, I've seen people who've been hit by these first-person drones lie there with their legs shredded and simply take their AK-47, put it in their mouth, and pull the trigger because they know nobody's coming for them. Nobody's coming for them. Significant numbers of the total fatalities of these drones are due to the suicide of soldiers who would rather just end it quickly than either freeze to death, bleed out, or whatever the case may be in some field in the middle of Ukraine someplace with nobody in sight or sound and knowing full well that nobody is coming for them. American soldiers in that situation would be rescued. And they would be medevac, and a significant number of these injuries that prove fatal if unattended would in fact have those lives saved if there was hope. And to me, this is the ultimate image of the Ukrainian war, is a war where both sides are so desperate, so brutal, so brutalized that the choice of either putting your rifle in your mouth or clutching your own hand grenade to your chest is a best possible option for a 20-year-old lying in a field someplace. Not getting on the radio or waiting for your report to come in that you're missing and listening for the sound of helicopters coming over the horizon to come and get you the hell out of there and get you to a field hospital. That's the dismal brutality of war in Eastern Europe in 2025. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on Right Angle.